we'll try to spice things up a little bit with the quality movie that was Con Air. Now, of course, the person who suggested this, who was going to join us this week in the movie club, Connor Happer, who's down in Fayetteville following the Jays in the NCAA tournament, can't be here this week. So we have to defend this Drek for him.
Yeah.
Or talk about this Drek for him.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to take
this? Was me.
Take the rule? Oh, this was your pick. I mean, you did surrender your pick to Connor.
Yeah. So I picked Con Air. So
a movie now regrets.
Yeah, this movie is 90s as hell, as we'll.
Yes.
We'll unpack it in a variety of ways. So, I mean, first of all, we do the general plot. Let's do the general plot.
Yep.
I almost want to spend a lot of time though on how he got arrested in the first place, because the first 5 minutes of this movie are insane. But Nicolas Cage's character commits involuntary manslaughter, and then he has to go to jail. 8 years later, for some reason, he's going to get on this plane with a bunch of like horrible people, like the worst of the worst. The Danny Trejo character is like a real big scumbag among many scumbags, because they have to fly these people to somewhere, but that's where he's got to be with them as he is getting out of jail. He has a bunny rabbit for his daughter. He's going to go there. He's going to give it to his daughter. But first, he has to hop on this plane with a bunch of monsters. Well, and over the course of this, John Malkovich, among others, takes hold of the plane, and off to the races we go, as Nicolas Cage's character is trying to do his best to not only survive, but also play well with the real bad guys, but then also get away at the end. They pick up a Hannibal Lecter type Steve Buscemi character about halfway through the movie. That's Connor. How did I do, Ken, in explaining what the hell this plot is of this movie?
Well, you did pretty well, given that the plot is like, this is a totally preposterous. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, this isn't like plot holes like Swiss cheese. This is like plot holes like a black hole.
This is like multiple cannonballs went through a boat kind of plot.
Oh yeah, it's just sinking to the bottom of the ocean.
So I mean, and not to pick, but it starts with the very, very first scene that you were talking about.
Ridiculous.
Beyond lunatic-y, he ends up in federal prison for a murder charge. You don't end up in federal prison on a manslaughter charge. You end up in the pen right down the street from my house, right? It's a state charge. So he would have never been in federal prison to begin with.
And real quick, how about the guy too being mad about Vietnam? Like, what? It's the 90s. What are you? You're like a 30-year-old. Why are you mad at me? Like me being mad about, like early 90s wars that America was doing and getting mad at some troop about it. Didn't make any sense.
Why we lost. This is with Desert Storm.
Yeah, Desert Storm. Nice job there, buddy.
So, yes, what this movie really is pure Jerry Bruckheimer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It was him. This may have been the Bruckheimer apex. This movie followed The Rock, right? Same basic kind of movie, right?
It did. Yes, it did.
And it's Bruckheimer. By the time 5 years after this, the nature of the action movie had changed because of the computers started coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all old school action, right? And that's what Bruckheimer's specialty was, right? Over the top action. And by God, they were going to do it from the time they land the plane in Carson City and pick up Buscemi to the end. It's just nonstop, sort of non sequitur action. It's just, okay, this doesn't really attach to this other thing, but who cares? It was I will clean this up for our radio listeners, but
yes,
you remember the Burt Reynolds movie, was it Burt Reynolds? Yeah, Cannonball Run.
Yes,
I still need to see that movie.
That movie is based on an article that maybe the best auto writer of the 60s and 70s, a guy named Brock Yates, wrote. Mm-hmm. And Brock did the screenplay for the movie. and he made a serious movie out of his article. And he was on the set, and they weren't making the movie that he wrote, blah, blah, blah. So he went in to see the director, and the director listened to him complain. And then the director looked, and I can't remember who it was, but Yates, this is a famous Yates story. Director looked at him and said, Brock, F art, let's go wreck some cars. That's
Yeah, they did. By the way, Cannonball Run has far, far fewer plot holes than this movie does, but that's another story because I'm a big Cannonball Run guy. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was hard because, I mean, listen, I didn't go into this thinking I was going to watch Shawshank, okay?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting art. I wasn't expecting, I was expecting a good action movie, but even with a good action movie, I don't want to be insulted with all of these ridiculous scenarios that have to take place. I mean, the whole point, so they land this plane and when they're ready to pick up, was it Buscemi's character, whatever it was,
when they have all of the guards in the
they have the guards, and Malkovich's character has taken on the role of one of the guards, right?
Yes.
And it's in a sandstorm, it's just a big old storm. And so, everyone's kind of masked up. And I mean, for this whole idea for these convicts to work, they would have had to expect that this sandstorm was going to be there. I mean, how did they know that was even possible? But then Malkovich pulls down his mask, and it's like, wait a minute, you're talking to another federal agent, and you're supposed to be this just terrible, murderer. This would be like if Jeffrey Dahmer escaped and a federal agent didn't recognize Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, it's just like he's probably on the 10 most wanted list.
Or even that part too, where the whole reason they have to land in Carson City is to drop off a Nazi and a couple other guys. But at the beginning of the hijacking, the Nazi and the other guys just happen to get shot and killed. So they have to figure that out to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So convenient. Everything is just too convenient. Too convenient.
And these are not actual characters either. That's the other issue with this movie.
You talking about like the bad guys are just like turned up to 11?
They're just this bad guy. The Buscemi character. He's Hannibal Lecter, but he doesn't play him like Anthony Hopkins. He plays him as kind of a regular guy, but he's still. Oh, we see this. He's Hannibal Lecter. We know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Trejo, repugnant, right? The worst scum of all, right?
Yeah.
But that's all you know, right? There's nothing behind the character, even the Nicolas Cage character.
And his horrible accent.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
That accent.
I was on my way to say,
oh my gosh.
Not only is it horrible, it's one of those perfect movie come and go accents. He's got it sometimes. Sometimes he doesn't.
So I turned it on last night. My wife and I were on the couch, and she was just messing around on her phone. And she looks up at one point. And she's like, "What accent is he doing?" And I was like, "It is horrible." Especially that first scene where he's writing the letters, and it's like 5 minutes of letters between him and his daughter was just one of the unintentionally funniest scenes I've seen in a while.
It was funny, but I mean, it was so bad. I thought, my God, this is Forrest Gump. And then lo and behold, guess who his best friend ends up being in prison? Michael T. Williamson, who played Bubba, Forrest Gump's best friend. I mean, the similarities are incredible. That was it almost took me out of the movie from the very start. It's like, okay, listen, was it really necessary? I get it. There's a lot of things that we're picking apart, but was it really necessary to have him play a character who's from Alabama? And why couldn't Nick Cage just have done Nick Cage's voice? Yeah. I mean, was it really that central to the story that he's this guy from Alabama?
Can't you be from Alabama and not have a ridiculous accent?
Yes.
He said he was from Alabama. He didn't have to do no accent.
No.
Nick Cage.
Or he'll just say he's from Chicago. Who cares?
Well, they're landing the plane in Alabama. That's their,
I know, but I'm just hell, they
anyway.
could have imprisoned him in Alabama. I don't know.
Nick Cage just felt so out of place in this movie. Like it didn't feel natural. Every time he was on the screen, even his general vibe and presence, it's just like that took me out of it too, which is inconvenient because he's the main character.
I'm so happy though. Like I've seen the meme of him with the hair and his smile for years, and so it happens at the beginning of the movie, and I felt like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood pointing at the screen. So that was really good. I will say this: the villains, like you said, they're all paper thin. There is something about John Malkovich, though. That guy is so magnetic as an actor, and we've done a couple of his movies now over the years. We did Being John Malkovich back in the early days of the movie club. I barely seen anything in him, and every time I watch a movie with him, I'm like, I need to go watch more John Malkovich stuff because that guy rocks.
Yeah, he does, and I've met him in Poison, as they say, and he's kind of got that magnetic attraction about him, just sitting and talking to him in a restaurant or whatever it was, was like, and it's so some of that's just natural, right? Not even acting, but man, when Being John Malkovich is brilliant, I think. He was also in one of the Dangerous Liaison movies that came out. And he's like really, it's this guy only a little more civilized, shall we say, but still this, whoa.
Is he as he is on film? When you talk to him, what was he like just as a normal person?
Oh, he's hilarious for one thing, and really, really smart. And just, but he still has that kind of visual magnetism or whatever you want to call it, right? That he has for movies, because he is kind of different in the way his whole persona, and his whole.
He seems intense.
Yeah. But when he's a normal guy, he's also not intensely dramatic or whatever. He's pretty intensely funny at times.
Yeah. We talked about it randomly, John, but the thing that he did for the AFC Championship game a few years ago when it was the Jags Patriots.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was so. Oh, and El Scorcho literally just mentioned that. He did the pregame video. Yeah, that thing was awesome.
It almost seemed like here was a guy who was up for a couple of Academy Awards prior to this, that this movie or a movie like this would have been beneath him.
Wrong again. This is a paycheck movie. This is a paycheck movie. All right. It's a paycheck movie for Cage. It's a paycheck movie for him. The rest of them were not yet established, right? Danny Trejo and Buscemi and stuff. Remember
young Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, Dave Chappelle. I was going to say, did you notice this movie did not kill Dave Chappelle's career? So
it didn't. No, but the movie killed Dave Chappelle, which was just another. I mean, we're not spoiling anything. No. Dave Chappelle gets crushed by the landing gear. Okay, so he's stuck up in the bay of the landing gear, and then they discover his body, and this horrible dummy that they've created of dead Dave Chappelle, which, by the way, he would not have looked like that. I mean, he would have been. It doesn't matter. But they drop the body, and the body happens to fall on top of this car as this guy's complaining about the birds that just crapped on his newly waxed car.
I just got it clean.
I was just like, oh my God. It was like they knew at this point, hey, we're in it for the laughs.
That was what I was just going to say when you said that. They knew this thing was a joke, and they went along with it, right? And in part, that's probably why some of the audience was attracted to it, right? Because it's played for, they don't play this seriously. That started with The Rock, by the way. The Rock is a little bit this way, and Con Air takes it to its sort of ridiculous zenith.
But I thought, Kent, not that we're reviewing The Rock, but I thought that was so much better because they did try to keep it serious. But how much of that was because Connery was in it?
That was because of Sean Connery, but it was still a kind of tongue-in-cheeky,
Yeah.
You know, they clearly made it. They knew they weren't making a real something that could happen in reality even with The Rock.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with that. But if you take that tone and then crank it up one more notch, you got Con Air. And it's just like, okay, if you want to find this thing kind of a action movie joke, maybe it's entertaining. But that's all it is.
And how about too, Kent? I mean, I mentioned at the start, the very 90s movie. It goes, and the music is just it exists the whole time. Like it's never like a downtime for any conversation. It's just that music, and it's that 90s that you get so often after like some of the quips and the jokes that the characters make.
But how about at the end? So, and again, another just ridiculous, action movie plot hole. But here, this plane is crash landed in the middle of the Vegas Strip, with a bunch of escaped cons on it, and then magically, oh look, they're able to bus in Nick Cage's wife and daughter into this middle of this scene. So he sees them from afar, and then the terrible what was that? Was it the what was it? Was it How Do I Live? Was that the song? Yeah, just the terrible version of How Do I Live Without You is playing, and it was just like, oh my God, this even that was hilarious.
Even that, we're on the same wavelength of the stupid stuff there, John. That I'm watching this now. How did they get there? How did they know they were going to crash in Las Vegas? How?
And by the way, the airport is right next to the Strip. So they could have landed at it's not like, oh, we're not going to make it because the airport's too far away. The airport is literally right off the Vegas Strip.
Mm-hmm. Having never flown into Vegas, that's perfect.
Yeah, no, it is. It is right there. Freaking there. I mean, the MGM is like, a mile away. It's ridiculous. But anyway, that's
even
what
better.
A movie.
That makes it even better. Even more ridiculous.
Oh God. Oh, Con Air. And what did Connor? This is like one of his.
It's one of his favorite movies.
I think it is his.
So how about
movie.
this from Stibbs a little bit earlier? He said, "All of this is true, and the movie is still perfect."
It does seem extremely Stibbs.
Yeah. It definitely seems like one where, like, if you go in with the right mood, you're going to have a good. And not that I went in with a bad mood. I thought it was going to be pretty ridiculous, but it was even more ridiculous than I was expecting.
I mean,
in a lot of ways.
The movie's not in the same vein of this, but when we were growing up, there were movies like The Toxic Avenger, like, for example, that were just absolutely ridiculous and dumb and had more plot holes than anything, and yet we still love them anyway. For people who, I can see where people would see this movie in the same vein, where they acknowledge all of its faults, but it's still entertaining because it's over the top, it's ridiculous, and it's just silly.
It definitely is all of those things.
But it doesn't ever need to be seen twice.
No.
Unless you're Happer, apparently.
Unless you're Happer.
And it's on
Or
TBS
Stibbs.
or
Or
TNT for
all
the
these
500th
people.
time.